Hello, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Hammerhead Show. I'm Jack Hammer from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and as always with me on Mondays when we do this, that's why we call it the Hammerhead Shows. I got the sneakerhead with me, Rob Shu. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing very well, Jack. Excited to have actual practices to talk about. Excited to have the schedule out. It feels like we are edging ever closer to real football.
Yeah, tell me about it. That was the getting to go to the rookie mini camp on Friday and actually seen people run around with 49ers helmets on. Was good, especially with the length of our off season that we go through to be able to put that away for a day and report back on an actual practice. That was it was a revival for me. I was starting to struggle with the off season, and so to get to go up and do that was a lot of fun, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how you doing?
That's what we call a pro level tease right there, Jack. Letting them know just the level of excitement they should have for something coming up next in the program.
That's right. We're gonna we want to get on here and get into the schedule a little bit. I know the schedule came out on Thursday. We didn't get a chance to discuss it on Friday like we normally would because I was up in Santa Clara and had a 3-hour drive after that. So we're doing that today. We're going to get into the schedule a little bit for everybody. Go through game by game. We're going to give our predictions, and we'll see who comes up with what in terms of our predictions on the records. And then it'll be fun to kind of go back and recap this in January, on January 9th, when the season's over with, and see how our predictions played out.
Very exciting stuff, Jack. Very exciting. I think that the 49ers schedule, just overall looking at it, yes, they have some really tough opponents. Yes, they have, the fifth hardest strength of schedule, according to the NFL, from last year's wins, losses. But I'm pretty excited with the way in which it's shaped out. It could have come out in any particular order. There's some very favorable elements to this schedule that leave me feeling just a little bit better about it, better than I was prior to the schedule release when I looked at the quality of opponents purely by itself.
Yeah, the one thing I'll just give my one really quick is that having the bye come where it does, it couldn't be really any better for them. It's right in the middle of the schedule, as close to the middle as you can get in an odd numbered schedule, the way that it is. For you, what are some of the things about the schedule that you think benefits the 49ers?
I absolutely agree that having the bye in the middle of the season is paramount. It gives you, a fairly equal stretch of games on each side. It's not like you have that early bye where you then have this dreaded drudge to the playoffs where it's just this war of attrition and you're watching the bodies pile up as you go from week to week to week. Having it in the middle strikes me as close to ideal as you could get. If I'm splitting hairs here, maybe I say I'd rather have it in week 10 than week 9. But to your point, when you have an odd number of games, it can't come purely in the middle. It's going to be a half game on either side of it. So week 9 gets as close to that as I think you can get. I love how this schedule starts out. And I know we'll get into that in just a moment as we go through the games one by one. But Trey Lance's development seems to be the key to just how far the 49ers go this season. I believe that we have an elite defense. I believe on paper that this defense could be a top 5, top 3, top 2, top maybe defense with D'Amico Ryans at the top of his game, coming off of a phenomenal first year as defensive coordinator. A lot of quality guys coming back on defense and adding some key positional depth and some key veteran players as well. I love the addition of Jason Verrett coming back on the cheap deal. Again, it's on paper. You got to see how the injuries shake out. You have to see players returning to form. Jason Verrett will be a key cog in this defense if it is going to be elite. And it'll be fun to watch that play out. The other aspect I would say for the 49ers is the lack of travel in the schedule in that second half. Being able to really limit the amount of travel that they have after that bye week seems, again, to favor a late season push. Sets up for early season, get a little bit of momentum. Late season, keep that momentum going, hopefully into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The way that it sits, having 17 games, but they only have seven true road games because of the uneven schedule. Last year they had the 8 home games. This season, that gives them the 9. And then, so they're supposed to have 8 road games, but they have the one in Mexico City, which is a neutral site game, although it's a Cardinals home game. Both teams are traveling to it. Both teams are going to be playing at altitude. It's going to be a difficult game, I think, on both sides of it. And
I tend to think one team's going to have significantly more fans in the stadium, and I think that team is going to be the Niners.
I agree. I think that's the other thing as well. They travel so well, and having this international game be on the West Coast, I think, is really going to help the travel to that. I think I look at the schedule, and the one thing that if I was a fan of the 49ers that lives on the West Coast, I'd be extremely excited because you only have 2 East Coast games. And those are back-to-back weeks, and the 49ers try to get that scheduled that way on purpose every year if they can, where if they have East Coast games, they try to get 2 of them back-to-back so they can stay out there. And you start to look at the schedule, and they go out to Chicago and they go out to start the season, and then they have Carolina and Atlanta in weeks, 5 and 6 of the season. And then after that, they don't travel outside of the farthest travel that they go is out to Denver, and Denver's even earlier than that. I mean, they're pretty much locked into the West Coast, to the Western Seaboard after that point. So it's a really good schedule for the 49ers in terms of the way that it all breaks down. It's kind of funny, I think, in that they have the Rams twice early on. So we'll see how this all shakes out. It's going to be fun, but they open up in Chicago on the September 11th in Chicago. This is going to be the 4th time that these two teams have met on opening weekend. It'll be the first time that they've actually played that game in Chicago, though. They've never opened up the season in Chicago, the 49ers. And the last time these two teams played on opening weekend was 2003, the year after they fired Steve Mariucci. Dennis Erickson's 49ers opened up that Dennis Erickson era and looked like it was going to go off with a big 49-7 victory for the 49ers.
And then?
And then they, and then the rest of the story. But so, they opened up in Chicago, and I just want to, so what do you think? How do you think that first week plays out for the 49ers?
To me, again, if you could pick one team, I want to give Trey Lance the best chance to be successful early. I want him to get off on the right foot. I want him to be comfortable. I want him to have time to throw. I want him to feel as if he can, excel against this team. Give him that dose of confidence. If I'm going through the list of potential opponents, attempting to pick out the best possible week 1 matchup for all those things to happen, I think I'm pulling the Chicago Bears there. So that the NFL already drawing from the hat with 17 names hit the nail on the head with the best week 1 opponent possible. Would it be better if this one were a home game? Yeah, I would love for Trey Lance's first start of the 2022 season to be at home in Levi's Stadium. But we knew when they played Chicago, it was going to be a road game coming into the schedule release. For it to be that first game, this sets up very nicely. I feel as if with the defense, again, acknowledging on paper, with the defense we're putting on the field in 2022, I almost feel like the defense alone could win us this game against Chicago.
Yeah, I agree. This is, going to Chicago to open this one up is almost the same as last year opening up on the road at Detroit, right? There's not a whole lot. When you look at the Chicago roster, there's not a lot that's going to scare you, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Fields got a lot of reps last year. One of his better games of the season was against the 49ers. But that was also at a period of time when the 49ers defense was kind of in a little bit of transition and really starting to become who they were going to be down the stretch of the season in the second half. So I'm with you here. I think this is about as good as you can get for a road game for Trey Lance to open up his career. It's going to be fun to see 2 first-round draft picks at quarterback, 2 guys who the 49ers fans were all over, especially Justin Fields. I mean, last offseason, if you were not a Justin Fields fan, you were persona non grata with a lot of the 49ers faithful. So this is going to be a fun one, I think, and I go with the 49ers over Chicago as well. I think this is a game, good start for him, way to get off kick the season off with a 1-0 record. I think can't really set up a whole lot better for him.
Yes. As long as it doesn't turn out in the same way as the Dennis Erickson era, then I will be thrilled with a big stomping victory over the Chicago Bears in Chicago. And I will be trying to hit the stadium for that week. I will be traveling to Chicago again, if possible, meeting up with E. Kim to get some deep dish pizza. Like, this sets up to be good food, road trip to Chicago, and a dub. And it doesn't get much better than that to start off the year.
Yeah, I've already looked to see how many points my new Southwest card is going to give me, so that I can maybe get out to the Chicago game. So that's one that I'm thinking of as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to get out all the way to Chicago, but I'm definitely going to be traveling for some games this year. Chicago would be a fun one though if I can get out there.
Yes, it would.
And hook up with a bunch of fans and stuff. But so we both have them coming out of the blocks, one and one. Let's jump over to week 2. Now they get their home opener, the home opener for the 49ers. They've played against Seattle a couple of times in the past for their home opener. They've played, actually, this will be the third time they've had their home opener against Seattle. They're 2-0 in their previous 2 home openers against the Seahawks, 15-7 overall against NFC West opponents in home openers. So this is again, kind of a favorable matchup based off of historical context, right? And this is a game too. Seattle's been really good against the 49ers. I think they're 8-2 in the Kyle Shanahan era. But there's somebody missing from Seattle this year that I think kind of flips it in the 49ers' favor.
A key position of interest, is that who they're missing there? Someone that maybe was responsible for a lot of those wins?
Yeah, I think their holder got traded. Is it? No. Yeah, Russell Wilson not being a member of Seattle, I think definitely helps the 49ers out here. The 49ers, I think, have a talent advantage over Seattle, not having Russell Wilson there and having it be Drew Lock instead. Drew Lock is a step or two better than Nick Mullins when it comes to NFL starting quarterbacks. He's a guy who puts up good numbers, who also at the same time, while putting up good numbers, kills you with turnovers at inopportune times. I think this is one that really plays to the 49ers' favor here, and they go to 2-0 with this one.
I tend to agree wholeheartedly with that. I don't want to discount Seattle. I don't want to discount a division game. So I will admit that Seattle plays San Francisco extremely tough. Pete Carroll, as much as I love to make fun of him, as much as I enjoy despising the man, as much as his gum chewing drives me absolutely crazy, I have to give him credit. I have to give him his due. He is a talented coach. He does tend to get players to play hard for him, and in particular, in those division games, even when it seems as if some things are out of reach. Obviously, week 2, unless they are, as I think one fan indicated, tanking their season, you would think they're going to try and be in contention. So I'm not going to discount Seattle, but I do love getting them early on in the schedule. Love having them at home first, and they are a depleted roster, even with Pete Carroll as their head coach. This sets up to me as either one of these first 2 games, the Niners manage to drop one of them. I think that's going to start off some pretty significant debate, especially depending upon how those losses accrued. It could be the start of questioning some of the moves that this organization has made to this point. I think there are a lot of people waiting to jump on and say, "Oh, I told you so. Oh, I knew they should have made this move. I knew that they should have kept so-and-so on the team." Whatever your reasoning may be, I will be shocked if they do drop either one of these games. So I'm putting down W for week 2 as well. I think the Niners start 2-0.
Who could so-and-so be? Maybe
that one famous guy that we're not supposed to talk about, because when you do, it erupts in the chat. People are tired of talking about him. I get it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And then real quick, William Bryant Bennett, thank you very much for the donation. He says, "Great show, guys." Thank you.
William, cheers, brother.
Yes. And that brings us to, we're now at 2-0. Both of us have the 49ers at 2-0 heading into week 3. And for the second year in a row, the 49ers have a Sunday night game in week 3. They're going to be traveling, instead of hosting last year they hosted the Green Bay Packers in week 3. This year they're going to be traveling to take on the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson, who we just got done talking about. How do you see this one playing out for the 49ers in Denver?
This is a tough game. No doubt about the fact that Russell Wilson has been kryptonite to the San Francisco 49ers. We just talked about how Seattle is worse off because of that trade, and now we feel as if the 49ers should be able to take advantage of it, get that W there. I do think the Niners have a healthy shot at winning this, even with their kryptonite being on the other side of the ball, even with the talented defense that Denver has put together. I'd be, a little more intimidated by the Broncos if they still had Vic Fangio because of the respect I hold for Lord Fangio. But now he's back on the sidelines with the San Francisco 49ers, just watching those practices, waiting in the wings, maybe ready to step in next year. But he's not there with Denver. And so this one strikes me as a game the Niners will steal. And I say steal because I think as the season goes on, Russell Wilson gets more comfortable within that system, and Russ begins to cook a bit more. I would look for the Denver Broncos to be a hotter team down the stretch than at the outset, where Russell Wilson is still going to be getting his feet underneath him within a new system, operating within the Broncos offense. And potentially, we don't know at this point in time, the details on the case are unclear, but Denver may be without Jerry Jeudy at that point as well. It seems entirely possible that he is handed down some type of a suspension from the NFL for those charges that he is currently facing. And if that's the case and he's out, another added advantage for the 49ers. It's a short travel to go play Denver. It's a primetime game. This, to me, could be a time where Trey Lance has gotten his feet wet, gotten his feet underneath him, and he shines for the national audience. I'm going with a W, 3-0 to start the year.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one. And I the other thing about this game, then I understand, the piece that you mentioned, and that is the one. If you're looking for the Broncos or a reason to pick the Broncos over the 49ers, there's a couple reasons. One of them, obviously, Russell Wilson. Wilson's a heck of a quarterback, given the 49ers fits over his career. The other piece of that is you have the altitude, having to travel up to Mile High. That plays into Denver's favor at times. And then just the fact that it's early in the season. The where I think that this doesn't play into the Denver Broncos is this is a coaching staff that has no history really in being in the position in which they are in. Nathaniel Hackett is a first-year head coach. This will be his third game as a head coach. And then you go to his coordinators, and he has Justin Outen as his offensive coordinator, who has never been just the offensive coordinator. He was a passing game coordinator. He worked on on that side of the ball, but he's never just been the offensive coordinator. And on top of that, you have Evero. I'm sorry, I'm butchering his name. That's their defensive coordinator. And again, somebody who's never been a defensive coordinator. So you're going up against a Denver team that has some really good talent. This is a team that, Fangio had built up a really strong defense there. They just didn't have the quarterback for the last couple of years. But when you start to really get into it, this is a coaching staff where if you compare Nathaniel Hackett and that coaching staff to what the 49ers have at the top with, Kyle Shanahan, basically he's the offensive head coach and coordinator. And you have D'Amico Ryans, who's now a year into the system. I think it favors the 49ers. I think the 49ers are a better team overall. They did take a couple of guys away from the 49ers. DJ Jones is going to be up for this game. K'Wan Williams is going to be up for it. But if anybody knows how to take advantage of those two players, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan. So it'll be an interesting game to watch, but I do believe as well that the 49ers can take this one.
He does that better than any coach I've ever seen, to pinpoint that weakness in a player that he knows so well and exploit it. So, yeah, I do think that gives them a little bit of an advantage. I will say I predicted the W here. I'm not going to be shocked if they drop this game. It's going to be a tough one. I see that as a close matchup and basically a coin flip as to a win or a loss.
Yeah, and one of the things, too, I agree with you. I think it could be a coin toss type of a game. The other thing too to look at when you look at this is that you have all these disciples of the Shanahan tree across the NFL, and he has done extremely well against all of those coaches. He's done very well against Sean McVay, and then you have a bunch of guys who kind of are fall from the Shanahan, from that tree as well. I mean, you look at Green Bay, okay, for the Packers, for example, LaFleur, he's a Shanahan guy, and Shanahan's done very well against him. The guy out in Cincinnati, they beat him this year. He does very well. He knows the Shanahan system is spreading across the NFL at a rate in which he knows, which is good for the 49ers in a way, because I think when you have the guy who's created the system that everybody's trying to duplicate, he can help a guy like DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans has seen that every day in practice from the start of training camp throughout the season, right? His players are seeing those routes, those run scheme plays and those kind of things, and it really helps them out. So that's what part of why going up again, if they're playing Denver next year at this time, then I might say it differently. But given this being week 3, I think it gives the 49ers an advantage.
I like that prediction. Also, I would like to state that I am very grateful with the sunshine I have coming through my window to have adjustable lights. If you see my lighting going up and down, it's because I got my little phone here and I'm like, oh, I look like I'm in witness protection. No, let me go ahead and crank those bad boys up. And now I'm all bled out in whitewash. So maybe I have to turn them down a little bit again. But I'm having fun over here, Jack, trying to keep up with the lighting in the background. But that's the beauty of this art form is you got to be flexible. Got to be able to pivot on a dime.
There you go. Just be careful. Don't make it too light, because we don't want you to get blinded by the light.
Yeah, blinded by the lights.
Yeah, see, I had to bring that in. Usually I don't do that to you. Usually I do that to poor Sunil tomorrow night. But you teed it up for me.
Boss references are always accepted, sir.
Let's move on to week 4. So they have Sunday night football in week 3, and then the next week is Monday night football at home against the same team they had Monday night last year at Levi's Stadium, the Los Angeles Rams, in week 4 at Levi's.
So because of the way in which I had the last game going, I am predicting that this one doesn't fare as well for the 49ers. However, this is my caveat here. This is me attempting to not be completely wrong in this, right? To hedge my bet just a little bit. If the 49ers do drop the game to Denver, I think they come back with a vengeance against LA. But I'm predicting, my official prediction is that the 49ers start 3-0, that they beat Denver on Sunday night. And now they're up for their second primetime game in a row. They go from Sunday night football against the Denver Broncos to Monday night football against the Los Angeles Rams at Levi's Stadium. I think the 49ers have the potential, and I am predicting that they drop this one. I don't think they win 4 in a row to start the season. I believe after 4 games, the 49ers will be 3-1. Again, I'm torn. I'm on the fence whether that loss comes against the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson, or whether it is Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. I have a feeling that the Rams will take a little bit of a step backwards this season. I don't think that they have improved their roster when looking relative to last year, where they were obviously able to take home the Lombardi, but they're a very formidable team. And I don't buy into this. We have ownership over them. I believe that the playing field was evened just a bit by that NFC Championship win by the Los Angeles Rams. A talented team, great defense. This could be the one where Trey Lance struggles a little bit. Sean McVay obviously knows Kyle Shanahan's system very well. You would think he would make every effort to create a difficult environment for Trey Lance. And you know that Matthew Stafford in that offense should be able to put up some points against the San Francisco 49ers, even with the improved defense in Santa Clara. I am sadly predicting a home loss to the Rams in week 4.
Man, oh man, I don't know. You got a lot of people on here. You're the 49er guy who usually is pro 49er. I don't know about this one on the Rams. This one's, I'm teasing you, but this is one where I look at this game and I hear a lot of what you're saying, and I hear that from different sources. The thing here, they brought in Allen Robinson. That's a good addition. Robinson's a good receiver. They brought in Bobby Wagner. Wagner's solid. He's going to he's an upgrade over what they had in the middle of last year. But at the same time, the addition of Robinson is offset by the fact that Odell Beckham isn't around, and I think Odell Beckham is a better receiver than Robinson. And then they've lost a little bit in their pass rush. They don't have the guy, Von Miller is no longer there, so that's going to change the pass rush a little bit and make things a little bit more difficult for their pass rush to get to Trey Lance. And the way that I see this is, I think it's going to be very similar to the NFC Championship game. The difference here is that if Kyle Shanahan can get those receivers open at the second and third levels like he did in the NFC Championship game, I feel like Trey Lance hits those guys. And that's why I put the 49ers winning this game. It's going to be it's going to be a tough game. The games against the Rams were last year, other than, the first one wasn't because Stafford went gaga in the first quarter.
Yes, he did. He just fell in love with Jimmy Ward.
Yeah, exactly. And he did that in the NFC Championship game as well. Not, Ward had the pick, but he had the throw right down the middle of the field. He gift wrapped an interception deep for our guy, Tart, but just didn't work out. He also had the bad interception deep against them in the Week 18 game at the end of the game on the deep throw that was picked off by Ambry Thomas. So it's one of those situations where he has some issues there. I'm going with the 49ers. There's these, when we start to look at these first four games, the Denver and Rams games are two that could go either way, right? And I just feel like the 49ers are I'm going with a deeper team here and a little bit of the past, history of it. And that's why I'm going with the 49ers there.
I love it. So a point of clarification here, Jack. Do you now have the 49ers sitting at 4-0 to start off the season?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have them at 4-0. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So 3-1 shoe, 4-0 hammer.
Yeah. Yep. That's where we are through the first quarter of the season. So they round the quarter pole. I've got them at 4-0 and you're at 3-1. Either way, the 49ers are looking really good through 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I better not be hearing some pessimistic fans at that point. If we are at 3-1 or 4-0 with Trey Lance at the helm, I want some enthusiasm, Niner faithful.
Well, that's really that's part of when you had the 16-week schedule, you could break it down into quarters, and it was a lot easier to do. Now it's quarters and then one game. You can still kind of do it though. If the 49ers can just go 3-1 in all four quarters, that puts them at 12-4, and then you go into week 17 or 18, I guess it is. But a 3-1 quarter is really good in the NFL. If they can do that, I think everybody should be happy. And then that leads them with that record. That leads them right into maybe another easy part of their schedule. It's on the road on the East Coast. They're traveling all the way across to the East Coast after having played on Monday Night Football, which I would say is a little bit of a troublesome. I talked about that last year with them. NFL does them a little bit of a favor here, though, and puts this game in Carolina in the later time slot. So instead of it being a 10 a.m. start, it's 1:05. How do you see 49ers Panthers playing out?
That's a great call out that this is an East Coast game played at a West Coast time slot. So important for the body clock. You're playing the game at the time you're used to playing it when you're at home. And you're playing the Carolina Panthers. So, I mean, come on now. Let's talk about that. But yes, I have this one chalked up as a W. I'm not terribly afraid coming off of a short week in traveling to play I would say, clearly lesser opponent as far as talent goes when I'm looking at both of these rosters and comparing the San Francisco 49ers to the Carolina Panthers. Maybe if they had been smart and traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, they would have had a chance to win this game, but they didn't. And Jimmy's still sitting on our roster. So thank you for that. And thank you for the W we are going to get coming into your house beating the Panthers. I have this one chalked up as that win to start off the 2-game road trip. I also agree with you that if we're breaking it down into 2-game stretches, I think this one is comparable to that easy 2-game stretch that you have against Chicago and Seattle to have Carolina and then Atlanta. So I have the Niners winning that first one and then probably staying over on the East Coast as they tend to do on these 2-game road trips.
Yeah, I would expect them to stay out there as well. And Carolina, you look at the Panthers, they have a pretty good defense. They are good on defense. They're solid over on that side. But then you look at the quarterback position and they have Sam Darnold and then they have the rookie and Matt Corral. And there's another one that's over there too, but it's mostly going to be their Darnold or Corral. So unless the Panthers make a trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, this is going to be the Panthers are going to be lucky to win 5 games with the quarterback situation they have right now, and that's what Matt Rule's done in his first 2 seasons in Carolina is 5 wins. They're going to be lucky to match that with the quarterback situation I think that they have out there. So 49ers move to 5-0 as far as I'm concerned. They're at 4-1 on your list. And then I agree with you. I think they're going to stay over, probably go up to the Greenbrier since they've been doing that the last couple of years and they know how that works and it just works. It's easy for them. And then that moves them down to week 6 and they go back down to the Peachtree State, right? And they take on the Atlanta Falcons on the road again in week number 6.
I mean, a lot of this will hinge on Marcus Mariota. I mean, what does he have left in the bag? Did his time in Las Vegas somehow shift his trajectory? Is he ready for a starting role again? I say probably not. Not with the talent that he's surrounded with there in Atlanta, not against a superior roster coming in with the San Francisco 49ers. Looking back in the Kyle Shanahan era on these 2-game road trips where they have stayed in Ohio or West Virginia, since 2017, they've done well on these 2-game road trips, right? They tend to rack up the wins. That's why they continue to do this. Hey, let's stay over in that Eastern time zone. They allow their body clock to adjust. They do have a 10 o'clock start for the Atlanta Falcons, but again, they've had a week in the Eastern time zone. They should be used to that 10 o'clock start by that point. I see the 49ers matching up well against Atlanta here. Again, against Carolina, Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle. I look at our defense alone and I say to myself, well, sort of regardless of any second-year struggles that you may anticipate, that you may see from Trey Lance, regardless of those struggles, I feel very confident in this defense's ability to shut down those teams and it only requiring some average play from the 49ers' new starting quarterback to get us over the hump. If you have a quality run game and a quality defense, those things travel. So I think they're going to travel here on this 2-game Eastern trip. I think we walk out of there 2-0 on the trip, taking us to 5-1 after week 6.
There you go. I agree with you there. I think it's it's going to be a win for the 49ers. They got rid of Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was the tough one in that, over there. And for Matt Ryan not to be with the Falcons anymore. And as you mentioned, the change over to Marcus Mariota, that all favors the 49ers. So I have the 49ers going to 6-0. I think that stretch is probably the second worst stretch of the season, or maybe that's probably the worst stretch of quarterbacks that they're going to face and all season long in back-to-back games. And probably the second worst stretch behind what they face in weeks 1 and 2. And then it gets hard from that point.
Jack, 6-0, Niner faithful are going to be riding high if that is the case. I mean, hearkening back to the start of 2019, there are going to be some jazzed 49er fans, including this guy. 6-0 would be a phenomenal start.
Yeah, and Tom Bragg, he's in the comment section. He's had put this up there a little bit ago. He said we will be 6-0 going into the KC game, and I agree with him. I think Foreigners will be 6-0, maybe 5-1. Headed into Kansas City there in week number 7. So they come back home for that game. Week 7, Kansas City Chiefs at the 49ers. The 49ers finally get a chance to redeem themselves from the Super Bowl 54 defeat in Miami. Sorry to bring up some bad memories for the 49er faithful, but that's where we finally get to see it, and it's going to be at home at Levi Stadium against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. How do you see that one playing out?
Jack, I want to take a moment to thank you for that. You just put me back in the stands of the Miami Stadium, watching, thinking, oh, we got this one. We got this one. And now I'm reliving that moment, that heartbreak, that terrible end to the 2019 season. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for that, taking me to that dark place. We'll see if I even have the willpower to finish the show after that. It's just, too tough.
Hopefully your lights don't go out again.
I may need to go into witness protection in thinking about that loss. No, this is hard for me to say, but as much as I want revenge, as much as I want to say that the 49ers are going to come home from that 2-game road trip and lay the smackdown on the Chiefs and get a little bit of sweet, sweet vengeance, the 49ers historically have done well on those Eastern stays. but they have done poorly in returning from those Eastern stays. I don't know whether it has to do with allowing the body to fully adjust to the Eastern time zone and then flying back and actually then struggling to reacclimate to your own time zone, or whether it is just exhausting to have been on the road for 2 weeks straight and putting all those miles on the body and then coming back home. It has proven to be tough for the 49ers. Some of those have set up as trap games. The one that pops to mind for me is 2019. The 49ers coming back from the road trip to then, I think, face Atlanta in that one. And that was a loss. And so I do think this is tough. The 49ers come back, and it's not a trap game. It's a team they should be able to get up for. It should be one that they're highly motivated to play in, and yet I don't know that the bodies will cooperate. I know Kansas City, people view it as they've taken a step back. I still think they are an elite talent that needs to be feared. I have the 49ers taking down their second loss at home in this one. I think the 49ers end up 5-2 after week 7.
There you go. And you kind of stole my. You didn't steal it. You borrowed the same line of thinking that I had.
You can have it back, Jack. Now that I'm done with it, you can have it back.
Yeah, it's, I look at this and the same thing you said. The 49ers have struggled. They've done well in these back-to-back games when they stayed. They've struggled when they've come home, and they haven't. I think it's like you said, it's a body clock thing. It's just, there's some jet lag that I think falls into play there, and then I think it just leads into a less than sharp week of practice, which then leads to the way that they play in these games. And we saw it, like you said, in 2019 against Pittsburgh.
That's right. Atlanta was later that year.
Yeah, it was against Pittsburgh. I mean, they were able to pull out the victory, but they turned it over, 4 times, I believe it was, 5 times. And so even despite that, they were still able to get it. So this is when I put this one down for a loss. I think the 49ers this will be their first loss of the season. Just, not going to be crisp enough. And against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, you need to be up for it. If you're looking for a reason to go with the 49ers in this one, if you need to look at one, the 49ers have only lost 1 time to the Chiefs at home. They're 5-1. And that the win was actually the first time they played them. They've actually won their last 5 games against Kansas City at Levi's or San Francisco, Santa Clara, wherever the game is out here on the West Coast. They've won those home games. So we'll see, but I do have them losing this one.
Yeah, and hey, whether they are 6-1 or 5-2 after week 7, that's going to be a phenomenal start for San Francisco. You have to be excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. And then that brings us to, you already had the 49ers losing to the Rams once this season. No, you didn't. You had them winning the Rams game. It was the Broncos you had them losing. I'm sorry, I lost track on that one. But so I'm at 6-1. You're at 5-2, and then they go down to SoFi, Levi South for the game here.
Fans are going to be a little irritated with me after this one. Jack, I have the 49ers losing 2 in a row here, dropping the game to Kansas City in week 7. And then did I say they were going to lose to the Rams in week 4? I did. Am I saying that they're going to lose to the Rams in week 8? I am. You don't have to shoot me. I am fully in admission that there's every chance the Niners take that win in week 4, right? I said that earlier. It was my disclaimer that I can flip-flop weeks 3 and 4 as far as that first loss of the season. I'm confident the Niners end up at 3-1 after the first quarter of the season. But now after the second quarter of the season, I have them slipping a little bit, falling down to 5-3. And this is where I think going into the bye week, if I'm correct about this, the 49er faithful should be reasonably pleased with a 5-3 start. A 5-3 start is a good first half of the season. That's leading you on a path toward the playoffs. But when you drop 2 games in a row, to teams that are emotionally charged for the fan base, teams that are playoff caliber teams that are truly testing where you are relative to your peers within the league, and you then go into a bye week coming off of 2 losses, I predict not only is that what is going to go down, but this is where the fan base loses their cool a little bit. This is where the chat in some of our programs turns violent, Jack. And, fans are crying out and saying, oh, well, I told you so-and-so wasn't ready to step in. I don't know who they could be referring to with that so-and-so, but they might be playing the quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be a tough one for me to stomach, but yes, I have the Rams beating the Niners twice, 5-3 at the break.
Wow. I'm teasing you. I put this down as a win for the 49ers. The 49ers have, I know it's tough. You look back and you say, well, they won 6 in a row. They lost the NFC Championship game. But I just feel, again, the same reason that I felt like they were going to win that game in week 4. I think the 49ers are still the better team all around going into this one. Again, we're dealing with in a perfect world. There's no injuries, right? Just based off of the rosters that we think they're going to have when they break camp. But I think the 49ers are going to be able to pull this one out. It's going to be a tight game, similar to the NFC Championship game, similar to Week 18. But I'm siding on the 49ers side here, going for them 7-1 at the break.
Oof, I love it, Jack. I hope I am wrong and that you are right, good sir.
And usually I'm not the fountain of optimism when it comes to the 49ers. So to have them at 7-1 scares me a little bit. Real quick, before we move on to the next one, Jay Guile, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, Jack and Rob, if Mac retires, should we think that the new O-line starters will mesh quickly enough so they can protect Trey? 2 rookies on the O-line. Yikes. You want to take that one first?
I certainly, the yikes is appropriate. I will not be pleased if we end up losing Mac this late in the offseason. I think that no news is good news to this point. There were trigger points for me that would have indicated we were moving in a different direction at center. With what we did in the draft, with the fact that we've not heard anything since then about Mac, with the idea that the end of the calculation period for next year's compensatory draft picks has now come and gone, and you can sign any of these remaining free agents without any penalty against your compensatory draft picks for those players that you lost. And the San Francisco 49ers have still not made any key additions there. I feel as though that lack of communication, that lack of news about Mac is a positive thing. Had we drafted Donovan West, I might feel differently about it, even if it had been a 6th round flyer that we took on him. But I just don't see the 49ers didn't prioritize bringing in that replacement. Therefore, I interpret that as meaning Mac will be back. If he is gone, yes, I believe that is something to be worried about. And I would turn back to the gratitude I have to the NFL schedule makers for those first couple of games, keeping it easier on us.
Yeah, I agree. If it isn't, if Alex Mack does choose to retire, which I'm in the same boat as you are, Rob. That's why on my tweet this morning, I said that I feel like, if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Alex Mack returning. And it's for exactly this, everything you just said. It's all about the fact that we're way down the road with this thing now. And I think the next date to pay attention to is the middle of June when the 49ers reconvene for their mandatory minicamp. I think that's the next date to pay attention to, because that's when the workout bonus starts to come into effect. And I think he has $100,000 workout bonus, meaning Alex Mack. So I think that's the next inflection point in this scenario with him. But the fact that we haven't heard anything leads me to believe that Alex Mack is back. And if that's the case, the 49ers will be returning 4 of their 5 offensive linemen from last year. If not, then I would change my win-loss record a little bit. I don't think they're going to go 7-1 if they have to go with Daniel Brunskill at center, which I think it'd be probably Brunskill or the guy who's their backup, who I can't remember his name at the moment. You probably
Jake Brendel. Yeah, Jake Brendel. John Lynch is very high on Jake Brendel. He made very sure to tell us all that. I think you're right about that workout bonus thing, because you're talking about a newly married man. You got to keep that money flowing in if you're going to keep happy wife, happy life going on there. So, yeah, I think that June date is one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and he's working out. I'm sure he's doing stuff and working out. We know that. Nick Bosa, he doesn't show up in Santa Clara usually until training camp if he doesn't have to.
Right.
And even then, even if he's there at training camp, he really doesn't show up until about halfway through training camp when they decide to actually it's not even halfway through. It's usually, after the last preseason game or right before it when he finally decides that he's going to ramp up and start hitting people and going through all the drills, the one-on-ones and things like that with the offensive line. Works for him. Doesn't matter what he does, right? If that's what works for him and that's what makes him one of the best pass rushers the 49ers have on their team, the best one they have now and one of the better ones they've had in recent years. All strength to Nick Bosa.
Yeah, so, do whatever you like. You like training with your brother? Great. Go train with your brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we are on thank you again, Jay, for the donation. Really appreciate it. Let's jump over because now we get to the bye. We have the bye there following the Rams game. And then following the bye, it is home to Levi's to face the other team from Los Angeles. This time it's the Chargers.
So I'm trepidatious in making this prediction here because I do think the Chargers are a vastly improved team. They have the potential to have one of the elite pass rushes in the NFL, certainly from their starting duo in the other Bosa brother, who is no slouch himself, and potentially a return to form for Alex Mack. So that could be a very ferocious duo coming off of the edges. I do have faith in Kyle Shanahan with an extra week to prepare. And I have predicted the 49ers to drop the 2 games prior. So that comes into my prediction here. I think that the fervor has built, as I'm saying. The Niners have dropped 2 in a row. They head into the bye week. If Niner faithful are losing their minds, but Kyle Shanahan is steadied on their next opponent. He has the additional week to game plan against the Chargers. I have the 49ers taking this one at home against the Chargers, thus propelling them to 6-3 after week 10.
Okay. I look at this one and you hit on it. The defense for the Chargers. You have Joey Bosa on one end, Khalil Mack on the other. That's going to be tough on the 49ers offensive line. And then in the secondary, you have the guy that everybody it seems wanted the 49ers to sign in J.C. Jackson.
Right. And
then they have Derwin James behind them at the safety spot. And then you go over to the offensive side of the ball and Justin Herbert, going into year 3 now. Keenan Allen, the former Cal product, is just a stud receiver. And then Mike Williams, they brought back as well. This one, there's not a whole lot about this game that really sets up good for the 49ers. And you add in the fact that they're only 2-3 under Kyle Shanahan coming off of the bye. I have the 49ers dropping this game to the Chargers at home to fall this to 7-2 on the season.
I cannot fault you for that prediction. If it were not for me predicting the 2-game streak, the 2-game losing streak, I'd be right there with you.
Yeah, so we're close now. You're at 6-3. I'm at 7-2. So we're kind of working our way back to the middle here. And I just that game's really, when you look at that one's one of the things that I look at is the quarterbacks that they're playing against. And if you just look at the quarterbacks, the better quarterbacks have always given the 49ers fits, it seems like. And you add in the defense, though, from the Chargers here, and that pushes me over to them on this one. And then following the game at home against the Chargers, it's a long week in that they get to travel out to Mexico City. Viva Mexico. I hope I didn't butcher that.
It sounded very fluent. It made me wonder if you were bilingual, Jack.
Yeah, we'll keep that off of the air because there's a funny story about that. I made a trip to Spain and I speak a little bit of Spanish. And let's talk about since I saw it off the air. So but I'm going out to Spain with my girlfriend and she I told she sees that I'm bilingual or have it on my my LinkedIn and stuff like that, right? And we get out to Spain and she's wondering why I'm not speaking Spanish. Instead, I'm watching her speak Spanish. And she's doing a fine job and I'm just enjoying watching her. And she walks in and she says, hola, ¿cómo está? And the person at the counter looked at her and said, don't speak English. And she says, she looks at me and she's like, that was in Spanish, but okay. It's like, yeah, I have not heard the end of the fact that I didn't speak Spanish the entire time we were in Spain since then. So apologize for not speaking my Spanish like I should have done while we're out there. She was doing the best that she could and was actually really good at it.
Well, you were just being a gentleman and allowing her chance to shine, Jack. I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah, that and the fact that she kept getting tired of me like grabbing onto her hand before walking across the street, and then she almost stepped in front of a moped that was going screaming down the street, and then she realized, oh, maybe this guy knows what he's doing after all, right?
Maybe I should trust him.
No, she's great. She's very, very independent. That's one of the things that I like about her.
That's phenomenal.
But the Arizona game, let's get back to football here.
I've got the Niners sadly dropping this one. Arizona will not have started their plummet toward the bottom of the league as they like to do at the end of each season. They'll still be, kind of riding a premium position. This is a tough one. It's a division game. They're always close. Again, I do think that Arizona has historically underneath Cliff Kingsbury struggled at the end of seasons. I know that they have, from a talent standpoint, taken a step back this year. So many Niner faithful could view this as an easier matchup than I do. I think Kyler Murray, the remaining mobile quarterback in the division after Russell Wilson's departure, he's a wiry little squirrel running around on that field, and he's tough to bring down. So I think they have the advantage. I've got the Niners again coming off the bye, beating the Chargers. I think this is a close one against Arizona in Mexico City. I do believe the faithful show up, and it feels more like a home game, but I have it edging out to the Cardinals in week 11. So that leaves me at 6-4. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel quite as great as the start of the season for my prediction.
Yeah, that's why they're still 6-4, still above 5-2 games over 500. Not bad.
Not bad.
The way I look at this one is the 49ers went to Arizona last year when Arizona was as hot as they could get, and they were starting a rookie quarterback making his first start in the NFL, and the 49ers should have won the game. The 49ers held the Arizona offense in check that day, and it was all there for the taking for the 49ers, and people other than Trey Lance really kind of hurt that offense that day.
Right.
And they come away with a loss. And I just feel like the 49ers are in a better position. Trey Lance is going to be in a better position this time around. Going with the 49ers in this one.
I like it. Yeah.
It just sets up for the 49ers. I think the 49ers are a very good team. I think the 49ers are being underrated by a lot of folks because of the uneasiness around the quarterback spot and the unsureness regarding the offensive line. And I think the offensive line thing is really all about the center position. And if Alex Mack comes back, all of this is under my assumption that I feel like Alex Mack is going to be back. And if he's back, this team, they have some changes, but it's not anything you're expecting to have the quarterback position be better than it was last year.
And even if it's not, if you have an established run game and an elite level defense, you still have the makings for a very formidable roster.
Yes, for sure. So I'm at 8-2. We're flying high on my end. We're 6-4 on your side, which is still good. If either of our records, then the 49ers fans should be happy. So they have that game, and then they have a short week coming home to take on the Saints. The Saints come marching in, and we don't know who's going to be quarterback. It'll probably be Jameis Winston. That's who they're expecting to be. We'll see if he can stay healthy this year. What do you think happens with the Saints here at Levi's? The start of a three-game homestand is also.
Right. 3-game homestand. This one sets up as a potential trap game to me that the 49ers are coming back on a short week against an opponent that with Jameis Winston starting, you have to think the Niners like their chances. I do see this as a trap game. I also see this as a very winnable trap game for the 49ers. They're coming off of, in my prediction, a loss to Arizona. Yes, there's a little more travel coming back from Mexico City than you would imagine, just in thinking, California and Mexico, close proximity. It's some miles that the Niners are putting on, and it's a short week. But again, with the matchup of the 49ers roster, that run game, that defense, as I expect it to be, Trey Lance improving throughout the season, I've got the Niners winning this one, taking them to 7-4 after week 12.
There you go. And then for myself, when I look at this one, we have the Saints defense is, again, that they're strong. It's a formidable bunch on that side, but they have Jameis Winston at quarterback, and San Francisco's shown that they can get the better of Winston in the past. And again, this is another one where you have a coaching change. Sean Payton is out, Dennis Allen in. Not a lot of change really for for New Orleans though, because really they lost Payton. They already had an offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator that was in place under Payton is staying there. And we'll continue on. Dennis Allen was their defensive coordinator already. So this should be somewhat of a smooth transition. But I'm still going with the 49ers here over the Saints. They know about Winston, and I just think that Winston's going to be turning the ball over for him.
That would be a phenomenal outcome, and he's certainly capable of it.
Absolutely. We've seen that from him out of the past. And if the Saints are having to rely on him, it's bad news for the Saints.
Yes, it is.
All right. So that brings us up. We're getting through it. We still have 5 more games to go. And the after that one, they're still in Santa Clara, and they get the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel.
So historically speaking, Kyle Shanahan has done well against his proteges. He tends to have their number to start. Certainly the McVay illustration is a good one. You look at other people copying his system against LaFleur. He's had a good track record. So you would think this sets up for me to say that the 49ers are going to beat Miami. But that's where I make the twist, Jack. No, I see Mike McDaniel coming in here with a vastly improved roster there in Miami. I think this is going to be a tough one that sneaks up on San Francisco. I have Mike McDaniel and a very stout run game for the Miami Dolphins getting going, even though the Niners have been good against teams that try to play that sort of bully ball, try to run the ball on them over and over again. I just got to tip my cap and pay my respect to Raheem Mostert. And assuming he's still healthy at that point in the season, I think within Mike McDaniel's system, he is going to be excelling. I have the 49ers dropping this one to Miami, taking them down to 7-5 after week 13.
Ooh, okay. We definitely differ on this one. This is, Miami's good. It's like I said, the return of McDaniel. They've been working on upgrading along their offensive line. They've added speed in the backfield, wide receiver. I think the fact that this game coming later in the season actually benefits the Dolphins because it kind of gives them some time to gel and get themselves, together. And I think this game is going to be a lot tougher than it would have been if it was early in the season. If this game was in week 4 or 5, I think the 49ers could blow this one out. I think it's going to be a tight game that I have the 49ers winning, but I think it's going to be a close one.
I like the prediction of a close game. I love the record that you have come to with the 49ers. I'd like to swap optimism. I think we are backwards day. I mean, if this were Friday the 13th, as it was on Friday, maybe it would make sense. But it's Monday the 16th, and we're just opposite day, apparently, Jack. I got a little more pessimism than usual. You got a little more optimism than usual. But we still have the balance. That's what's so nice about it.
Yeah, there you go. For sure. And then, on top of that, you have Miami. And then the next week, there's a lot of people that were talking about Tom Brady playing for the 49ers this year.
Tommy right? Boy.
Tom Brady was supposed to be playing, coming back to the Bay Area, playing for Kyle Shanahan this year, according to some of the media folks. But he didn't show up, and instead he gets to come in here, and he's still going to make a trip out here to the Bay Area just as a member of the Buccaneers. How do you see this one going here in week, what are we now, 15?
For the second time this season, Jack, I have the 49ers losing 2 in a row. This is Tom Brady's Cinderella season, coming back from retirement. I just don't know that I have it in me to doubt the greatest of this generation. Let me call him that. Tom Brady is a phenomenal quarterback. He is going to have a phenomenal season. Tampa Bay has a stacked roster. I think there is every chance that they are the kings of the NFC when all is said and done at the end of this season. This is a tough stretch to me with both Florida teams coming into Levi's where the Niners just don't have the dominant home field that you wish they did. I have them dropping this one and falling down to 7-6. Yet another point in the season where I predict there will be some unrest from the Niner faithful.
Yeah, if there are 7 to that point, I could see that happening here. I think the 49ers are going to lose this game as well. Tough, Tom Brady. I've given him some breaks against some of these other teams, but I think this is a loss as well. You start to look at, again, I told you I like to look at the quarterbacks they're playing against. You look at the losses that I have Patrick Mahomes as a loss, Justin Herbert as a loss, and now the next loss comes down to Tom Brady at Levi Stadium. I just feel like there's something about Tom Brady against the 49ers. Not that they faced him a bunch, but just here at Levi Stadium at home, just have a feeling that Tampa Bay is going to get the better of the 49ers on that day. So we both have them losing that one, and I have them dropping to 10-3. And that brings us to, I think, the Tom Brady game, and then you come back the next week and you're up in Seattle on Thursday Night Football. I think that's a tough ask for the 49ers.
That is a tough ask. It's a quick flight, though, and Seattle is going to be a different team. By this point in the season, my anticipation for Seattle is they are out of the mix. Enough out of the mix that they don't even get up for a division game at that point. Enough out of the mix that you start to ask, is there a little bit of tanking going on this season so that they can rebound quickly the next season? Of course, there isn't within the NFL. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I will be there, and I'm predicting that in Seattle Thursday night, it will be you. The talent on Seattle doesn't appear to be there when I go on paper through that roster. When I compare San Francisco to Seattle, those feel as if they should be easier wins this year, even though there is that historic dominance of Seattle over the past decade or so. So I'm predicting this is a win, taking us back up to 8-6 after week 15.
Yeah, and I have this one as a loss. I know that I had the 49ers winning the first game. I think Seattle did a good job in this draft. I think they're going to have some good young players who aren't going to be ready when it comes to week 2. But by the time you get to week 16, I think some of those rookies might be coming around. And I just short week, traveling up to Seattle, a place where you usually have a hard time to begin with. I'd really like to say the 49ers are going to win up there. I just don't see it. I just think that this is a game that they drop. And they fall to 10-4, according to my calculations.
Hey, 10-4, nothing to sneeze at with the Commanders coming up next.
That's right. The Commanders coming out to Levi's. This is going to be an interesting one. The 49ers celebrated by doing the whole slip and slide thing in 2019.
Yes.
Nick Mullins threw the game away in 2020 when Washington had a pretty good team that year, and with Alex Smith at quarterback, they did a pretty good job. In that particular game, though, the 49ers should have won that game going away. Nick Mullins kept him in it, and a pick six and a fumble return for a touchdown or something like that helped them out quite a bit. So, who do you think wins this one?
I think the Niners come out and beat the Commanders. I do believe the Commanders will be more of what I expected them to be last season. I thought they were going to be competitive in 2021. The defense stacked up in such a way coming off of that 2020 season that you would think natural progression. They were going to be an elite unit in 2021. They weren't, but I see this as a bit of a bounce back for them. They will be competitive within the NFC East. But the NFC East. But when you compare those two divisions, the NFC East and the NFC West, night and day. So if you're competitive in the NFC East, that doesn't mean you'd be competitive in the NFC West. When I compare the San Francisco 49ers to the Washington Commanders, I find the Commanders to be lacking there. Again, making the wrong decision at quarterback. Had they brought in someone like, Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe they would have stood a chance in this game, but they didn't. They decided on Carson frickin' Wentz. So, yes, I give the 49ers the edge in this one on a Saturday night Saturday matchup on Christmas Eve. And the Christmas present for Niner faithful will be the W that takes them up to 9-6. Feeling better about that 9-6.
Yeah, definitely. That would be really good. And I agree with you. I think you look at the Washington Commanders here, and they, Carson Wentz is okay. He beat the 49ers last year in a rainstorm and had a lot to do with 49ers defensive backs not being able to hold on the balls that were hitting them in the chest, almost as much as that as it was Jimmy Garoppolo not being able to complete passes, and Deebo Samuel fumbling one deep in his own territory at the end of the first half with the Niners leading. So I look at this one, though, and I feel like this is 49ers winning this one going away over Washington. Getting to the end of the year, this is when everybody needs to be firing on all cylinders, and I think the 49ers take it to the Commanders.
I agree with that one. New Year's in Vegas, my friend.
Yeah, this one here. This one, when I look at the 49ers traveling to Las Vegas, the first thing that comes to my mind is that it's a good thing that Trey Lance and George Kittle have already been to Vegas together, so they can focus on playing a game on New Year's Day on that Sunday.
They've already established their ground rules for how they operate in Vegas. They know, not to take it too far, because I'm guessing the hangover is still fresh in their memory from when they were there last. Yeah, I think that sets up nicely. And this does concern me. I mean, you're in Vegas New Year's Eve. There's going to be temptation. I will be out and about, and I'm not a drinker. So that just tells you how exciting it is in Las Vegas around that time. I've already booked my hotel, though, Jack, and I want to see 2023 start off with a 49er win. I am predicting that the 49ers win this one, regardless of whether the Raiders are in it or out of the hunt at this point. AFC West is a very tough division. I think there is every chance, regardless of the talent that the Raiders have added, regardless of Devontae Adams' arrival, that they are out of the mix at this point, given the way the AFC West shapes out. And if that's the case, it will be an even easier W. I think it will be a close game. I'm assuming that they'll still be in the hunt. I still have the 49ers taking this one. 3 games in a row. That's 3 wins for me at this point, 10-6.
Look at you. And I'm with you. I think the 49ers go in there, they win this game. The Raiders are tough. I think this game really is going to be two teams battling for playoff positioning. They're both going to be, in the mix. And I just have a feeling, though, that it's going to be 49ers, getting the win. Playing on New Year's Day isn't anything new to the 49ers. They're 2-1 overall on New Year's Day. I was actually at one of those New Year's Day games. It was a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. You might remember that one back in the late 80s.
Yes.
That was a New Year's Day game, and that's when Joe Montana hit Jerry Rice underneath, and then Rice took it the rest of the way to the south end zone for a touchdown. But yeah, no, I think the 49ers are going to take it to the Las Vegas Raiders in week 7.
The Raiders
going down, and they're got to go down hard. Isn't that what I'm awful, but that's what Al Davis used to say. He needs to go down, and he needs to go down hard. Awful. I'm not. No,
that was good. That was good. It's the voice that makes the difference.
and then after that, they come back and they wrap it up against Arizona. The date to be determined. It's either going to be Saturday or Sunday. Just depends on what the NFL decides they want to do. Probably depends on what's going on with the playoff race headed into the last week of the season. So 49ers, Cardinals to wrap it up. What do you say?
End of the season. I've got them at 10-6. So the Niners are in the freaking hunt. You can imagine at 10-6 in the thick of the hunt at that point. I don't know where Arizona's going to be sitting at that point, but I know one thing for certain, and that's it's the end of the year. Arizona is going to be playing poorly. They have shown me that over and over again, and I will believe it until they prove it differently, that they can actually close out a season on the upswing. And the 49ers have proven to me historically that when it comes down to a final divisional matchup game, be it Seattle in 2019 or LA in 2021, we come to play. And it doesn't matter who needs to step in and fill in for an injured player. It doesn't matter. We find a way. A Dre Greenlaw stop at the goal line. Having a left tackle, not Trent Williams, but I can't even remember my man's name at the moment. That's how obscure it is to bring him in at left tackle. Hit me with it, Jack. Hit me with it.
who at left tackle? From what year are you talking about?
I'm talking last year, 2021 against the Rams, having to fill in for Trent Williams.
Oh, it was not Tom Compton. It was wasn't it just Colton McKivitz?
Colton McKivitz, short arm McKivitz was filling in at left tackle. Right. No shots at McKivitz. I apologize, Colton. That wasn't meant to be a shot at you. Didn't mean to be disrespectful. No, but I mean, we filled in. We got it done. I see this as a win. I have it as 4 in a row to end the season. Niners ending up 11-6, marching into the playoffs with momentum, Jack.
That's a good one. If they're 11-6, I think 49ers fans will be happy. I have them winning this game as well. Like you said, it's the end of the season. Arizona typically stinks towards the end of the season with Cliff Kingsbury, and so I have the 49ers winning this one, getting to 11-4, winning the NFC West this season as well to host a playoff game. Whether it'll be home field advantage, might not be home field advantage because of the loss to Tampa Bay. We'll see, but that's what I have them at right now is 13-4.
I love it. 13-4 for Jack, 11-6 for Rob. Either way, we should be happy with that outcome.
I think so too. And real quick, going back to the Raider game, you missed this one earlier, but Andrew says, Jack and Rob, you should both have to get Mark Davis haircuts if the 49ers lose to Vegas. And then also, I think as Darren points out very astutely, that isn't fair because Rob doesn't have hair.
I was going to chime in with that as well. I'm glad that Darren has my back there. That would actually require Rob to go get a wig.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
Oh my God. I think I might have to do that. I mean, even if, regardless of just before that week 17 game, if I can find myself an Al Davis looking wig, not Al Davis, a Mark Davis looking wig, I'm throwing that bad boy on. Little bowl cut never did anybody any wrong.
There you go. And then, so I have them at 13-4. You have them at 11-6. I actually, when I went back and looked at my predictions from last year, I had them at 13-4. Season it goes well. They ended up at 10-6. The 4 games, there was 3 games that I had them winning that they lost, and there was 1 loss that they. So of my prediction last year, I was actually off by 4 of the 17 games. So I had 13 right, missed 4. So there's a high likelihood that I'm going to be off a little bit this year, but thinking about if I hit that thing perfectly, I might have to go buy myself a lottery ticket.
I think so, Jack. If you hit that perfectly, I am going to be ecstatic.
Yeah, you'll be happy. A lot of 49er fans will be happy. And
yes,
just to kind of wrap up the show, we didn't really get into this yet, but we were talking about it off camera before, and I wanted to hit it a little bit for the folks that are still hanging on. And but rookie minicamp took place last weekend in Santa Clara, and I was sharing with you a little bit of my feelings about how that went down. And it was interesting. It was fun. Anything else, it was fun to see guys running around on the field with helmets and balls flying through the air. It wasn't real football in terms of, they only had 2 defensive linemen that were active because Kalia Davis is injured.
Right.
But they didn't have a full team period. They had 6 offensive linemen, but it was good to be there. It was good to hear some of the rookies talk before practice, and then it was fun to watch them run around.
How do you approach it? Like as you're coming into this, Jack, before you've seen anybody on the field, but before you get out there, how do you game plan this? What do you tell yourself as far as objectives going in? Who are you trying to observe? And are you looking at specific spots on the field when you get out there?
I really wanted to focus on the rookies, obviously all of them rookies, but the draft picks, the 9 rookie draft picks. That's why my primary focus was I wanted to catch a glimpse of all of those guys in action. And then I also wanted to spend some time watching the offensive linemen in particular, because there'd been a lot of chatter around Jason Poe. There'd been a lot of chatter around Donovan West. And although those weren't draft picks, those were 2 guys that I wanted to see a little bit of as well. So not be able to have a team period. I knew there wasn't going to be a whole lot to it anyway, because they're not in shoulder pads and fully, their full thing. So it's not a full contact practice, but it was interesting. I got some pictures of the quarterbacks warming up. I got to kind of see what that looked like, which was different from what they used to do under Rich Scangarello. Was a little bit different. We'll see if that continues to be the case when they get into training camp. I wanted to catch a little bit of Danny Gray. Got to meet with Tyrion Davis-Price before practice. He was actually took the time to walk around and shake every reporter's hand before talking to us. Talk about, strong hands. My hand, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to write the rest of the day. So for me, really, I got out there. I during the initial warm-up period, I was able to get some of the pictures and things that I wanted for my channel and for the newspaper and things like that, so that I could use those and share them with folks. And then, there's only so many times you can watch a receivers running routes against air before you realize that, it's not really showing you a whole lot. And so I focused mostly on the offensive line, went over and watched the drills that they were doing. And I got to say, I was really impressed with Spencer Burford and Nick Zakel. Burford, he's a guy that comes in. When you look at his report, his scouting report, it talked about his hand strength and his ability to strike with his hands. And that was, they're working together with other offensive linemen, but they're still working through their drills. And you could hear every time Spencer Burford hit the guy that came towards him when they were winning. You could hear it. It sounded. I've never been to a boxing match, but it sounded. It was kind of what I would imagine what it would sound like sitting ringside, because every time he hit it, it was a loud thud on the man's chest.
I like to hear that. I mean, so these were some serious punches he was throwing. There was force behind it that absolutely rang true with what you had read. It wasn't another piece his quick feet as well. Did you notice his movement also being something that he excelled at? Was he an all-around prospect that intrigued you, or was it specifically the hands?
No, it was the feet as well. You saw his speed when they were working on some of their movement, right? When they're doing like their outside zone, or maybe it was a toss, whatever, but he's got to get out and he's got to get upfield to the second level. And he was really good at that. Zakel was good at both of those as well. You could tell the difference between the guys that were the draft picks and the undrafted free agents. That was in the tryout guys. Yeah. And that wasn't just with the offensive line. That was throughout everybody. You could tell the difference. The 9 draft picks stood out. I did not watch the defensive line stuff because there was only the 2 guys over in the corner. And so I didn't take the time to walk over there and watch it. I did see them going through their stuff, but yeah. And the other piece that was nice about it is when you're at training camp and even during the regular season, a lot of times they play the music so loud that it's almost deafening. And right. So you really don't get a feel for anything that's taking place. And the music, hopefully nobody from the Foreigners is watching, but at least over on Friday while we were there, the music it was loud, but it wasn't as loud as it usually is. And what I enjoyed about that was when watching the offensive line, when those guys would do something right, you could hear them getting praised. When they did something wrong, you could kind of hear them start to tell them what to do or whatever. You couldn't hear exactly what was going on, but you could hear when they would, like for example, when Spencer Burford pulled and went up and made a really nice, block, and his footwork and everything was right, he was getting praise from Coach Furster, and so on. And so that was nice. And then when they were doing their 7-on-7 periods, you could hear the defensive backs calling out and communicating with each other. Oh, wow. Not knowing what they're saying and what those things mean, but you could hear the communication. And so those kind of things, that for a football nerd, that was fun for myself. So we had that going on. So 2 follow-up questions for you, because you mentioned that you had your eye on Danny Gray at some point. And I have to say, I just happen to be wearing the Combine sweatshirt, but that jumped off the freaking page for me at the Combine. Just the speed across the wide receiver class. That jumped off of the field. It was apparent how fast some of these guys were. Did that speed translate to the practice field? Was it obvious just how fast Danny Gray is? Oh, yeah. No, Danny Gray was the only misstep of the whole practice from Danny Gray was a drop on a deep route from Brock Purdy against air. He was running a deep go route down the left sideline. The ball was a little underthrown, and so instead of catching it like this, he had to turn and catch it like that. And the ball dropped out of his hands. And then he started, do push-ups, in which he got yelled at by the offensive line coaches because he was in the middle of their drill. So he moved over and did his push-ups to the side. That was the only thing that I saw was an issue with him. And that
was the concern coming in, right? I mean, that is something to keep an eye on, is the drops for sure. It sounds like that may have been a particular scenario where he was trying to catch it in a somewhat awkward way. But then flipping it to the other side, I mean, there are several cornerbacks that people have been hyped about, that people are excited for. And when you look at, how this shapes out, if Jason Verrett doesn't return to form, there's very much an opening in determining who's there at the nickel position, playing in the slot. What did you see from the young cornerbacks? Did anybody stand out to you?
Well, they didn't. Neither of the young cornerbacks lined up in the slot. They both played on the outside. Sam Womack and Tariq Castro-Fields were the starting cornerbacks, I guess you'd say. Castro-Fields was on the right side. Womack was on the left side. And so when they went to the 7-on-7 period, that's when I kind of shifted my focus away from the offensive line and watched where I was standing. I could just turn and watch it. I was behind the offense, which was actually my favorite view to watch the offense from. And I was focusing in on Danny Gray, and I wanted to focus in specifically on his reps against Castro-Fields and Womack. The first play of 7-on-7 was a quick slant to Gray, and Womack not Womack, but Castro-Fields did a really good job of that one and drove on it and knocked the ball up. There was I don't know if he bobbled it, but from where I was standing, it looked like it was a pass breakup by Castro-Fields. The next play was a check down to the left flat to Tyrion Davis-Price, who dropped the ball. Just butchered that one, hit him in the hands and dropped it. And there's not, a guy like Tyrion Davis-Price, there wasn't a whole lot to get out of watching him in this practice because, he's a guy that's a big guy that you expect to see running through people. And here he is
bowling ball.
Yeah, here he is out on the field, and they're running 7-on-7 and shorts and T-shirts and helmets, and he's having to run around and catch passes, which is part of his job, but it's not his strength. And
right,
he did come back and get a little reception on a little stick route on the left side of the 49ers offense the next time they threw it to him. So that was good, but I was really impressed with Danny Gray. Gray had four receptions on the day. He had the only reception he didn't catch that came his way during 7-on-7 was the pass breakup. Right at the end, shortly after that, he went up against. It wasn't against Castro-Fields. It was against one of the other guys that was there. Beat him down the left sideline and made a nice catch along the left sideline for a long gain. He got matched up with Castro-Fields later on, and Castro-Fields was playing off with outside leverage, and he just ran right past him for a deep post that was underthrown. That would have been a touchdown with the quarterback with an arm,
nice.
a stronger arm than what Purdy has. I think he aired it out as far as he can.
Right, and just hit his limitation there.
Yeah, it was a little underthrown, but it was a really nice catch by Gray. And then Gray also beat Womack on a dig route. Womack was playing zone coverage on that one and just got beat to the inside. And even though he got beat, it was close. But Gray so fast, he was able to pull away from him without any help over the middle. My favorite rep of the whole thing of the 7-on-7 was Danny Gray matched up with Womack in man coverage, 1-on-1, and you could see the two of them because here's the thing, right? Everybody questioning Danny Gray's ability to be physical and get off of the press.
Right.
We all know that he's fast, but can he get off the line against that? When you look at a guy like Sam Womack is very good in that press. He's very good with his hands. That's what his scouting report told you, that he had good hands and he could run with the receivers. And that's exactly what happened. Both guys fought really hard. It was actually a good rep by both of them. And, Womack got his hands on him. There was some hand fighting. They got going up the sideline. He ran stride for stride with him right in his hip pocket. The ball went to the other side of the field, though. And you could tell it was a good rep because the two players were jawing at each other, slapping hands, celebrating the play, because it was a really good rep, I think, out of both of them. And it was one of those things that I wasn't watching the ball, I was just watching the matchup. So it was really good. And as far as Womack getting cooked, no, the ball went at him twice. Once he got beat, other than that, the other times the ball came in his direction, it wasn't his man that he was guarding. So he didn't get cooked, but I'll tell you what, Castro Fields did on the one. And then the other rep too. And this was another reception by Danny Gray. And it was to the left side, to Castro Fields' side. And Castro Fields, I think, was playing in a zone coverage on this one. And it was an out route, and Castro Fields got a break. When the ball was thrown, I thought it was going to be a pick, because he started to drive before the ball had left his hand. And instead of being able to make the pick or even knock the ball away, Brown ends up catching the ball and turning it up the left sideline. And that's the issue that I think everybody has. And the reason why Castro Fields fell to the 6th round of the draft is, here's a guy who has all of the measurables. He has all of the talent, all of the, you want to talk about, measurable, the speed and all that kind of stuff. He has that in spades. He looks the part, but he just doesn't make the plays. And we saw that a little bit just on that one play. So it should have been a pick or a pass breakup, and it was neither. And that's his issue, and that's something he needs to improve on.
One follow-up question that I have in your comment about Brock Purdy, coming up a little bit short in that throw. As an ex-quarterback, when you look at him and you look at his frame, do you get a sense that after a little bit of time in an NFL weight room that you could see that strength getting to a point where he can make more of the throws deep down the field? Or is that going to be a limitation for him throughout his career?
I think it's going to be a limitation for him throughout his career. I mean, you can add a little bit to your arm strength, even at his age at 22.
I mean, Tom Brady did some work on his deep ball, right? That wasn't a strength for him, and then he did some work there and improved.
Yeah, I mean, he could improve his arm strength over time. Yeah. He's never going to have the arm of Trey Lance,
right?
He's not going to have that kind of arm. But there could, right now he's at about 50 yards. He's maxing out. It's a weaker arm than Mac Jones. But there's things to like about him. But there's some limitations too. The only really bad ball that I saw him throw was it was across the middle to one of the tight ends, and it was high in behind him. Other than that, most of them were on the mark. It wasn't all that impressive. It was one, and again, it's 7-on-7. So you expect the quarterback to win on 7-on-7,
right? He has the advantage.
Yeah, he has the advantage because he doesn't have anybody coming to get him, right? And so he's just dropping. He takes his drop and he stands there and looks around. And my takeaway of Brock Purdy, and this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to say it anyway, is there was maybe one throw that he made throughout that entire training, that whole entire 7-on-7 period, that I couldn't make.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, I think that speaks more to your abilities than a lack thereof for Brock Purdy. But that's just my 2 cents.
And I'm not trying to rip on him. What I'm saying is that the ball didn't travel more than 15 yards down the field, other than a couple of times. And the one down the sideline, I think I can still throw it 30 yards down the sideline. I know I can't throw it 50 yards down the middle of the field anymore. My arm would fall off. But I know that I could throw, I still got some pretty good zip in that 20 and under range. I think I would have been fine doing that. And, back in the day when I used to play 7-on-7, I used to do really good in 7-on-7. I struggled when I got to the full thing because I was a little bit shorter and struggled with seeing over the offensive lineman. So I can sympathize with Kyler Murray. I didn't have his speed, but I can sympathize with not being able to see and being the short guy.
So other than Spencer Burford, was there one player, my last question for you, was there one player that stood out to you where you say, I'm keeping my eye on that dude?
I'm excited to watch Sam Womack against the 49ers. Nice. I'm excited to really, and I'm excited to see all of these guys, these 9 guys, Jackson, Price, Gray, Burford, Womack, Zekel, and so on, next month when they reconvene for their mini camp, for the mandatory mini camp, and to see them go up against the veterans. They were obviously the best that were on the field on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, as should be expected. That's why they were drafted. And so I'm looking for that. Though if you didn't ask me this, but if you're going to ask me one guy that I was a little disappointed in what I saw, it would be Jason Poe.
Oh, really? Not quite the athletic freak you were expecting to see?
There's a difference between being an athletic freak and being an NFL offensive lineman.
Yes.
And got to remember, and this is where I try to tread lightly, this was day one of a rookie minicamp in which all these guys are getting taught up and everything. If you were asking me today to say that Jason Poe would be on the roster, I tell you no chance in heck that he'd be on the roster, the 53-man roster.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see how he progresses. Donovan West, kind of similar, working a lot. You could tell they were getting coached up pretty hard. And again, trying not to be overly negative, but those guys are guys that need to improve, and there's a reason that they were asked to come in, and they have until the end of August to prove if they should be on the team or not. And we'll find more out about it. Can they take the coaching that they're being given? Can they build upon what they were taught on Friday while I was there? Probably did on Saturday and Sunday. They were probably better by Sunday because they started to feel more comfortable with what they're supposed to do. It was practice one, and we'll see how it works out. Really quick before Brian says, great show, guys. I heard one of the players in camp was given number 50. Is that an indicator Mac is retiring? If so, who has the best shot to start at center? I wouldn't read too much into that because they've got to give numbers. And during this time of the year, when you have 90 players, and a lot of times there are two guys with the same ones. For example, Brock Purdy had 14 on, so did Leon O'Neal. So usually there's some overlap on the offensive and defensive side.
Yeah, if that had been a draft pick that had gotten the number, I might read into that. But it was, a body that you do not expect to be on the 53-man roster.
Sure, exactly. And if they, and again, we talked about Jake Brendel would be the most likely to pick that up. And then
right.
Daniel says, hey, Jack, what's up, Big Rob? What positions do y'all think is your strong suit when it comes to scouting, evaluating? P.S. This is my first super chat. Thank you very much, Daniel. Really appreciate the super chat. And I'll start off this one. When it comes to scouting and evaluating, I feel most comfortable with quarterbacks just because I know what goes into the quarterback spot the most. I would say probably quarterbacks. I feel pretty good with the running backs, DBs, linebackers. I struggle a little bit with the offensive linemen because it's so technical. I mean, I have a decent idea. I know what I feel, and then I see some of the other 49er content creators like Brad Graham, who was used to be an offensive lineman, who knows the intricacies of it, even much more than I do. But I will say, like last year, I felt very good about the offensive lineman that went from Northwestern to the Chargers, and I don't remember his name, but that was a guy who I was like, if the 49ers can pick him, it was somebody that there was interest with. If the 49ers could take him, that would be a really nice pickup. And he proved it. He was a really good offensive lineman for the Chargers as a rookie. I have a feel for all of them, but I would say quarterbacks are the ones I'm most comfortable with, and work from there.
I feel similarly, that I have a feel for all of the positions. I believe that I have the ability to scout all of the positions at a moderate level. I feel most comfortable about those that are less technical. And therefore, I think what shines through most obvious to me is just the freak athleticism. And my belief is that shines through brightest in the skill position players. So I feel most comfortable evaluating any of the skill positions on offense. So specifically looking at tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, that's where I would be most comfortable. But I also understand that I have resources available to me. So what I tend to do is lean on expertise in people that I know. So when I watch Jack, I listen to him when I'm learning about quarterbacks. When I watch Brad Graham, it's all about offensive linemen. So I have found that resource for each one of those positions that I don't feel entirely comfortable about. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it's good to hear from different sources. And I like to, do that as well. I feel pretty comfortable with a lot of them, but quarterbacks would be number one for me. And then
absolutely.
You're just away from there.
Just to point out, there was one last one from Jaguayo 56 at 7:49, snuck in to wish us well, to say it was a great show, of which I agree wholeheartedly, and to have us stay blessed. I am staying blessed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jay, for that one. And Daniel, thank you for that super chat. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad that I was able to be the one that you did that with first. So I really appreciate that. And Jay and everybody that's over in the comment section. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. It's been a long one tonight, an hour and a half. Usually we don't do it this long, but long-winded tonight for me when it came to the schedule breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed that because I did have them at 13-4, so I made it worth your while.
Yes, you did, Jack.
So thank you to everybody over in the comment section. Rob, thank you for coming on and being so gracious with your time as always.
Always good, sir. Always.
All right. If you liked what you saw and you're already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button before you leave. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss when we go live. Hit that like button and comment as much as you can. And then also get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com so you can see all the writing that I do over there. And then last but not least, get over to Rob's channel, Sneakerheads. Just type it in at Rob Shoe on your YouTube channel. You can get over there, and he's got some really good stuff. I know he had a nice show before we started. So support everybody. If you subscribe here and everything. And any last words, Rob?
I appreciate you having me on as always, Jack. It is a phenomenal dialogue, and I enjoy our repartee.
There you go. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. I'll be back tomorrow with So Real Sunil. Take care.
Sunil.